voices astray, preventing them from walking a dangerous way. The numbers of the youth, staggering it seems, their belief in any means, even extreme. But we call upon God as our first reaction, offering an alternative of divine attraction. Special disappear who been where they aspire, to detour them to show a path that's higher, a profitable outcome, pleasing to God's sight, benefiting the 99%, shining a godly light. Generational turnaround, open doors wide for more people to thrive. No one left behind, seeking truth, unraveling the wild. One wrong decision to turn around, we defy. Generational turnaround, a podcast of truth, bringing undeniable proof. In a world where decisions cast a shadow, generational turnaround, we rise to follow. For the young,
right,
the
yeah, I'm trying to turn this music out.
No longer the high. Generational turnaround, we're on the scene.
Can't wait to get our guest up here. All right, I don't know if y'all heard me talking. I wasn't talking to myself. I'm talking to the music. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Generational Turnaround Podcast, where we seek the truth and then we bring you the proof. And the proof comes from the guests that I invite to be on the show. And I invite them because they are professionals in their fields. So, but right now, I'm going to bring to the stage my special guest for today, and his name is Paul H. Flowers Jr. So hold on, wait a minute. Let me get him up here. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hello, Miss Judy. Welcome. I am doing fantastic. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Well, now I'm doing even better.
I'm so glad to have you here, Paul. And I know all of my viewers are happy that you're here. And right now, there's viewing from Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, everybody. So
Excellent.
let's get this on the road. Oh shoot. I done got nervous, Paul. I didn't hit the wrong key. But okay, everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about Paul H. Flowers Jr.
Love it.
He is an accomplished entrepreneur and national sales director with over 20 years of experience and building businesses, leading sales forces, and developing high performance teams. As founder of the Superior Insurance Advisor and Life Health and Legal Educational Partners, Paul has guided executives to unlock their organization's potential while staying rooted in family, community, and service. A certified Scrum Master, CSM, and certified Identity Theft Risk Management Specialist with a master's degree. Paul delivers practical, action-driven insight on topics such as business, scalability, healthcare, transformation, resilience, and faith. A husband, a father, mentor, and advocate for financial and health literacy. His mission is to inspire, educate, elevate every audience, igniting a renewed sense of purpose. Now, going to discover more about Paul in a minute. But Paul, everything that I just read, and look, I had to kind of condense it so I wouldn't have to be reading too long, because the longer I read, the worse my voice gets. So I didn't want to read anymore. I want you But wait, Paul, I didn't pray us in.
By all
That
means.
is something that I always do. It's going to be short. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for getting us all up this morning, that we're right where we should be, right where you planned for us to be. And this day, let us influence someone who almost given up, and they come and they watching this show just to see if Paul is going to make a difference in their very, very bleak life. So we here to let them know that they can do all things if they just activate their faith and believe. In Jesus' name, amen.
Some more to be.
Yeah. Now, Paul, you got to fill in the blanks that I miss. And I know I missed quite a bit.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Miss Judy, for having me here with Generational Turnaround. It is a privilege and an honor. I saw the opportunity to come on board and share my life story and inspiration, as you shared, with the viewers all across the globe. And absolutely wanted to block out the time to give that. And again, give as much as I can and as much time as you'll allow. So again, thank you for having me on. And the blanks, funny story. Of course, we stories in this line of work. My mother used to take me to the barber shop and would let me sit there for some time, well before my appointment and sometimes well after. But staying in that environment was helpful in so much that I got a chance to be around gentlemen in the neighborhood and have some of the camaraderie that comes along with it. And at a young age, since my father had passed at the age of 3, it was good to be in that environment. So yes, I had like Boy Scouts and some of my friends' fathers that would also provide mentorship and guidance. And being in that group of gentlemen at the barbershop was always a home away from home, if you will, in there every week for an hour or two, waiting and then getting my hair cut. Well, one day, as my initial plan for life was to go into medicine and be a doctor, that's all I thought that I was going to do from the time I was like 7 until sometime in college where I woke up. The owner of that barbershop one day asked me to talk to someone and let them know what it is that I was going to be. And mind you, I'm like 9 or 10 at this point. And he asked me to say this to another grown man. And I was a little shy at that point where I was like, oh, well, I think I won't be a doctor. And he was like, speak up. What kind of doctor? He said, well, an obstetrician, a gynecologist, like Dr. Huxtable. And he said, absolutely. So he encouraged me to speak up about what I wanted to do and be. But what he said to me after that, Judy, is what really stuck with me. And I didn't understand it until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And what he said was, young man, it's a sad dog that doesn't wag its own tail. And again, I had no clue what that meant. And for whatever reason, I hit like 31, 32, and it was like, boom, I get it now. I get it now. It's a sad dog that doesn't wag its own tail. So you asked me to fill in the blanks. And for the folks that still are waiting for me to explain what that means, the sad dog not wagging his own tail is saying that even if he's happy, he's not wagging his own tail. That's a sad state of being in. So in this instance, I'm excited. I'm elated. I'd share with you just a few moments before coming on that I woke up to some great news. My second book to come out came out on Monday. I hit #1 and the bestseller list for Amazon under risk management, #3 in health insurance, in the bestseller categories. And the first 2 books, the first and second book, are in the top positions on hot new releases. So I'm wagging my tail in this instance to say that I woke up to, again, great news, and it's for a
Yes.
purpose. That
Congratulations.
Thank you. So the hidden healthcare gold mine and risk transfer revolution are here and available. Again, I'm not here to just say, buy the book, because it's not about book purchases, but it's more so the mission. I'm glad to wake up I'm thankful every single morning. And with that, I get to take one more crack at it, right? One more crack at making a difference in my industry, which is health insurance, business consulting, financial services, kind of all in a nutshell.
And how do you see people, period, but especially Black people when it comes to insurance? Have we grown? Because in my grandmother's day, when I was growing up, they had insurance. And sometimes they could barely afford it, but they knew the value in having that insurance. And then somewhere, I think not even my generation probably we stopped getting insurance. We wanted the money. We didn't want to put our hard-earned money on insurance. We didn't know that value.
Mm-hmm.
What about now?
So, as tough as it is to bring this up, I was doing some research not too long ago, and I came across two books by the same author, a gentleman by the name of Frederick Ludwig Hoffman. And the books were one of them is Race, Traits, and Tendencies of the American Negro, and the other was a plan for more effective federal and state health administration. And the premise of these books, unfortunately, isn't one that is very positive, because what it actually did was take a look at some of the mental and cultural characteristics of African Americans and their status. And basically, the gentleman was working to prove why we should be uninsurable and we shouldn't have insurance. So, mind you, this isn't that long ago, right? Yes, it was a late 1800s read, but the gentleman that wrote this book, I believe, was an actuarial scientist that worked at Prudential, right?
Mm,
And I usually wouldn't say company names, but in this instance, the
yeah.
book is written by a person that was working at this, grandstand of a company in many societies. And it's unfortunate that people of color who would work with that organization today don't even know that their entire premise back in the day was such that they were promoting the fact that they wouldn't even want to insure people of color. So there's some, little factoid for the day. Check out the books.
Mm,
You don't have to take my word at it. Go
right.
and learn it for yourself. But the today's mindset and mentality is pretty interesting. We have companies like Primerica and PHP and World Financial Group and others out there that are essentially advocating for minorities to have insurance and to, more importantly, come into the insurance industry, which I'm all for. I'm 100% for. The concerns that I have are that people oftentimes get turned off on insurance because they might be approached in this salesy, right? You need to be recruited to my team and agency kind of way,
Right.
as opposed to really sitting down and having a conversation about what a person values. And what a
Mhm.
person values and what's important to them is the only conversation that needs to be had when it comes to insurance. For instance, if you've got $50,000 in a just in case I die and need to have a funeral fund, then you might not need life insurance, right? So it's great to have if you don't have a responsibility for another human being, as one of my guests actually shared a little earlier on an episode. If you don't have responsibility for another human being and all of your affairs are in order and you've got a large cash reserve, you may not actually need life insurance. It's nice to endow those dollars to charities and nephews and grandsons and aunts and things like that. But if you're financially stable, bills are paid, no debt, then it may not be for you. On the other hand, if you have children, if you have a spouse, if you're a caretaker for pets or parents, and you want to at least ensure that if and when, I'll say, that time comes for your transition, that not only are they not put in a burden for having to come up with X thousands of dollars. The average cremation is anywhere between 800-900 on the super low side, but typically between $2,000 to $4,000. And that's just to burn you up and put you in the box. Right. And then going into the funerals can be as lavish as $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 and beyond. Right. Unless that's prepaid for, it puts a person in a financial burden. And especially our community, I see more GoFundMe pages than I particularly care for. And it's hurtful to a degree, knowing that there's a solution out there, but the same family that may have a GoFundMe page for the son or daughter that got unalived because of inner city violence would be the same parent or family member that might have a $300 pair of gym shoes on, or a $2,000 bag with maybe 2,000 in it, maybe not. Right. So when it comes to life insurance, Judy, you really touch a sensitive spot there, especially when you talk about people of color, because I think that there's just not enough education around it and what it can actually be used for. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll turn it back over to you. I used to teach people to get their life and health insurance licenses. I did this for well over 1,000 people. And in the training that we would deliver, I'd learned to get I got the information on how to get my licenses some decades ago. And then when we turned around and I was in that instructor seat to give that to another person, it actually amazed me how little information there was about certain types of insurance policies that are made available to some people and not necessarily to others. So with that, I gleaned from the years of experience and the people that I'd been fortunate enough to sit at the table and be in the rooms and have the meetings with, to I use my platform to, yes, help them get their licenses. We had like a 90+% pass rate, which is unheard of in licensing education. And with that, I also showed them other ways that they could use their license, because quite frankly, that type of information from the start of the industry is oftentimes kept and reserved for those that know, right? I'll just leave it at that, for those that know. So I like to be able to, I'm thankful, I should say, to be in a position to actually have gotten information and now can turn around and share it with other people.
How hard was it for you to get in that field at the time that you got in there?
So, interesting story. The introduction to insurance was a little bit different for me. I started in 2005 with prepaid legal services. And people might hear prepaid legal, that insurance? Well, actually, yes. In Illinois, as well as about 15 other states, it was considered legal insurance. So I needed to have what's called a limited lines producer's license in order to market prepaid legal. At the time, the company is now Legal Shield, in the state of Illinois. That was my actual introduction into insurance. And what I found was how can I put it? Well, I'll go a couple different directions with this. So first and foremost, I didn't know about residual income. I didn't know that I could essentially help a person become secured in whatever area of their life, legal, life insurance, health insurance. I didn't know that I could offer that security and peace of mind to a person for a nominal fee and be paid over and over and over and over and over again for something I did one time. So that to me was right, mind blowing. They didn't teach me that in school. They didn't teach me that in my undergrad degree in biological sciences. Heck, they didn't even teach me that in my master's degree. So that was eye-opening to me. And then fast forward into the life and health insurance side, the process was relatively simple. It's a 2-day class for life insurance and health insurance. I'd recommend anybody that gets one to get the other. You can do just life, you can do just health, but it just makes sense to get them both. And after the 20-hour class, which again, 2 days in class, roughly 7.5, 8 hours a day, and then your self-study, I studied for about 3 days and then went to take the tests. And all in, from an investment standpoint, so we're talking about barrier to entry, I think currently a course for life and health insurance ranges somewhere between $100 to $200. The test itself, I think between 100 to 150, and then you have to actually pay for the license, which I believe is about $250. And I think that's in Illinois. It ranges depending on where you are throughout the country. So we'll say for all in less than $500, you can start a career in a field that literally, with one policy sold can earn you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times your initial investment from one policy sold. So barrier to entry for my legal expense insurance was like $50 for that limited lines producer's license. Didn't have to take a test, but we did have to go through the background checks and all that. Coming into the life and health side, a little bit higher, and again, very rewarding in terms of what we're able to recoup, if we look at it as an expense, and more importantly, how we're able to help serve and educate and really protect the people that we care about most.
Wow. Now, I've got to ask, you have a master degree, right?
Correct.
In what?
So the master's degree is from Oklahoma State University. They were one of the few colleges in the country that had a program specifically for entrepreneurship. So most people will go and get an MBA, which is great, and they'll end up being hired at someone else's company, typically to run someone else's business. That
Right.
wasn't necessarily the route that I wanted. I wanted to own the business, to be the business for all intents and purposes, and create from within and bring it out. For that, I did some research and found out that there were programs specifically for entrepreneurship. Oklahoma State University had one of the top 5 or 6 programs in the country at the time. And that was the school I decided to go with for my master's in entrepreneurship.
So you were preparing for where you are right now, even though you didn't know exactly where you were going to be, but you knew you were going to be I can never say that word, but entrepreneur. Yeah.
Entrepreneur. That's it.
See, it's everything is it's already, God is already, if we just be obedient and not be hard-headed, he already has our path. And that's your path. That was your path. And you still there.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that as the path. I was 10 or 11 years old and started a lawn care business. So I cut anywhere from 8 to 12 lawns a week. I moved into high school and was the candy and CD guy. So whether it was the latest candy or snacks, or I would, and again, well, hopefully they don't come after me now, the RIAA, but I used to record CDs, right? I was the Napster guy. We had the DSL at the time, a step above dial-up internet, and a CD burner. So I would get the custom lists from people and create the CDs. I enjoyed creating, so I'd use those dollars, right? I would upgrade my hardware, so I went from a 4X burner to an 8X burner to a 16X burner. Like, so my tech guys out there, they remember that day. Like they know what that's all about.
Remember that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So it was a pleasure to have that in me from the beginning. Now, I will say that as a parent now, what I look for is what I can nurture in my child. And if there's a passion or a desire that they have, it's my tidbit of advice for, again, generational turnaround, is to not superimpose the thing that you think that they should do onto them. Guidance, yes. Exposure, yes. And it doesn't necessarily benefit the person to say, this is what you're going to be, and do that, right? It's encouraged for a parent to see what's of value, see what their child actually values and enjoys, and encourage and invest into that as young as you can, as early as you can. And if you're not the best person to do it, find somebody that they can be guided by as well, because again, we don't get this time back as an adult or as a child. I mean, we don't get the time back. So Sorry, side note, little tangent
No,
on
no,
the
and
life
it
side.
and it used to be more or less what's you're gonna make the most money in what field on what's long term, and so it had nothing to do with what you desired to be or what you had, uh, you know, a desire and wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm gonna let me get you back on these questions. In a
Sure.
world flooded with information, why do you believe financial and healthcare literacy remains the next major civil rights battle for families? And how can parents start those conversations at home today? And this has to do with generational turnaround because we believe that there got to be some bridging the gap between the parents and the young people. And I spend a lot of time at TikTok, and that was the number one problem is that's not what I want to do.
Mm.
But my mom, my dad, they want me to get in this field because it's a a field that's gonna always need people. That's
Hmm.
yeah. It's you go in that field because they're gonna always need people there. It had nothing to do with your desire.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just speaking on this. So, what do you say?
Oh, that's again a great question. So I'll answer a few points that you just brought up, starting with the latter, where yes, there are industries where people will always be needed, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's for your child. Okay.
Yes.
And so again, my mom wanted me to be a doctor, and that's fantastic, right? It very well would have benefited me. So shout out, mom. Yes, it would be great to have MD as a son, and I can be the great Dr. Huxtable. But what was passionate for me, what the passions were for me, were things like psychology and marketing. I always enjoyed people, and I always enjoyed money.
Yeah.
And for me, I also didn't like to be in a box. So I didn't necessarily want to sit in the office all day and just kind of let people come in, walk in. Yes, it would have been a lot of money. And there's also a lot of medical malpractice insurance. So, with certain fields, you got to take the wins with the losses. And I get that.
Yeah.
But that wasn't something that I could necessarily be proud about doing and saying that I enjoyed even along the path to get there. So, in terms of the financial and healthcare literacy portion, why that's going to be the next major battle, civil rights battle is what you asked for families, is that there's a big dividing ground between those that know what to do and those that don't. There's a chasm, if you will, almost as big as the Grand Canyon. And I'll say that in order to get across it, somebody needs to build a bridge. Now, it doesn't have to be a straight through. We can actually make pathways through it. But in order to get to the other side, there needs to be someone to lead the charge as far as sharing information. And though TikTok is a great resource for some, I'm glad that there are individuals on there, again, like myself, that are passionate about sharing information. And you can get on TikTok at no cost. Now, with that, you do also want to make sure you do your own research, because
Yeah.
everything that's put out by everyone isn't
Yeah.
necessarily to be taken as gold. But it makes a difference when that access is there from a social media standpoint, but more importantly, to your question, at home. So,
Yeah.
where there becomes a bit of an issue that I noticed is that from one generation to another, there have been certain, how can I put it? I like to put it gently, uh, gatekeeping almost,
Mhm.
where you have generations that have had the traditional 30, 40-year career, and that's the
Mhm.
times that we were in. They were raised by parents of the Depression. So they looked at savings a lot differently and might have certain risk aversion when it comes to investing in opportunities that come about, and or because now we're in a different technological and information age, they didn't necessarily have the ability to gain the adequate knowledge in order to invest from a standpoint of empowerment and education. It
Right.
might just be throwing money at the wall type of thing. So then you've got, and now you've got a group of children who are, they see everything coming fast, right? Fast and quick,
Fast.
which it's not that money and income can't be earned quickly. It's just that that mentality of that it has to come fast, or that's
Mm-hmm.
the best way to get it, is something that tends to be present in some of the younger generations. So there's an intergenerational conversation that needs to be had when it comes to where a parent or grandparent has been and what times were like for them, so that there's an understanding from a younger generation why they may look at money and funds a certain way, and that that open conversation and dialogue can actually produce something of merit. Um, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Tim Elmore wrote a book called the New Type of Diversity, and I had the pleasure of introducing him at an event not too long ago. And in his book, there's a big graph, a big chart that literally goes through each of the generations, right? The silent generation, the boomer generation, the X, Y, IY, Z, alpha, and it lists several characteristics of each one of the generations. And one of them is how they look at money, right? There's how you look at authority, how you look at work and work ethic, but then there's also how you look at money. And when you note the differences in how one generation looks at money from another, it's almost night and day.
Right.
So this again, funny story. I was having a conversation with a young lady, and she mentioned her current situation when it comes to like student loans and things like that. And I said, yeah, that's pretty interesting. That comes up for a lot of people in our generation. And within a minute or two, I was able to guess from her that her parents were born in the 50s, because what she was saying to me was very similar to what I'd heard from a parent that was born in the 50s. And I said, that is so interesting that, again, Dr. Tim Elmore's research was pretty spot on in that instance, but I could actually hear that conversation coming from someone else's, I'll just call it perceived struggle. She was doing okay, but again, there were some things that would have helped her to grow and develop differently in a more, I'll call it effective way, like some people get the opportunity to, had the conversation at home been different. So again, just to wrap up on your question for financial and healthcare literacy, being one of the next great places to start these conversations at home, it's because there are ways that, regardless of where you come from, starting young enough and being consistent, you can have I'll call it tax-free retirement options that are out there and available. There are triple tax advantage plans in the healthcare space, HSAs, that can grow dollars tax-free, that you can contribute to tax-free, and that you can use the money on qualified health expenses, all tax-free, right? So it's called a triple tax advantage plan. And because most of us plan on living into a nice ripe age, for whatever the Medicare or healthcare system looks like for people over the age of 65 at that time, at least there'll be an account with dollars in it. But again, if you don't know about an HSA and know what qualifications you have to have in order to have it and the most you can fund it with, you won't get one, right? You won't get one. From a financial side, also on a life insurance, there are policies out there that for again, cup of coffee a day, we'll call it, you can set your child up for basically life, making the right investments with that particular life insurance policy, making the consistent contributions to that policy, not taking it out and spending it as you see fit. But when your child is in their 20s, and 30s, they can use that for down payments on cars and things of that nature, for homes or investing in a business. And it can be done tax-free. And I'm not talking about the traditional 529 plan. I've seen and sold plenty of those, that it's different when it's a life insurance plan that's built to actually have funds taken out tax-free, where the money inside of a specific account is still growing, even though the money that you take out is a loan. There's still what's called positive arbitrage. So there's still a growth that happens for the money that's left in the account, right? Things like that aren't really discussed at home because they aren't really discussed at work, because they aren't really discussed at school. And where does one go when they're working 9 to 5 as a software engineer or whatever the profession is? Where do they go to get that information? Who says it's even important? Right. So
That's it.
in order for these conversations to happen at home, there would need to be a paradigm shift at the highest levels. And in our country, that typically revolves around government, that not necessarily mandates, but heavily influences and incentivizes for these conversations to be placed inside of the school system, for these conversations to be placed inside of the system of work, right? The person's 9 to 5, so that we can actually begin to learn about them and make them of more importance than on a proactive note than on a reactive note, which is typically what we see today.
Well, and I'm thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking about webinars and master classes, but at the school, at at least a hi- high school, at least a high school requirement. Is there anything like, because once you start talking about money, the money part of it, and what you can actually do with a policy
Mm-hmm.
after so many years, or however it works, I think that young people would be interested in that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
have you been asked to go to a school?
So you're peeking beneath something that is literally in development as we speak. So as I mentioned, I've got a couple of books that are out, and I actually just sent I won't say last two, but the first book that's on healthcare and all that stuff is part of a 3-part series. The first two are out, the third one's coming, and the fourth book that was sent over for final editing and production is called the 12 Skills That Pay Forever. And so with that, it's something that can be used as a tool in schools, in the home, that are more so not just financially based, but character based, so that you can actually begin to pay yourself whatever you feel you're worth as you continue to grow and learn to master these skills throughout life. More directly, though, to answer your question, when it comes to the school systems, I did come from an educational background also, meaning that I've taught in Chicago public schools as a substitute teacher. I was in AmeriCorps teaching pull-out students in 4th and 5th grade in Carbondale. Uh, and I'd actually also did a adjunct professor role at Loyola University here in the Chicagoland area, having taught the pre-college summer scholars program with the course that I developed from scratch on leadership and entrepreneurship. Now, do I see it regularly outside of the things that I've been able to personally contribute into that space? No. Uh, is there a huge need for it? Absolutely. And one of the mantras that I live by, Judy, is that I don't like to complain about something unless I'm willing to change it. And I advise others to take that on, because we're a world of complainers, right? Everyone
Yes,
wants to complain and has an opinion and be critical about something. But what are you willing to do to change it? Right? What are you
right.
willing to do to change it? So I said when I was 30 that my 20-year goal would be to own my own school. I'm halfway there, and I'm
Yeah.
using my profession of insurance to get finances out of the way. Goal of being retired in the next 5 years, and then using that subsequent 5 years to go back to school for my doctorate, and again start the framework for my own school. I had 3 schools in mind, so like a daycare through preschool, where I would work to teach and train children, like I have my son, and I'm doing with my daughters now. But my son is 12 years old. He is, and excuse me, he has been, he's in a gifted school now, and for his first years of life, going up through into 6th grade, this isn't me saying this as a parent. These are his teachers saying this to me. They said he was the youngest in his class because, I did put him in school early, but he was also the smartest in his class. My son has a bank account with a lot of cash in it. He has his own Cash App account and understands spending and savings. He's got a few $100s in the bank in cash, a few $100s in his checking, in his Cash App account that he's saving. Right? This isn't dad doing it for him. I've got another account for that, but this is money that he's saving at 12 years old. So he's one of the few, I'll call it thousandaires, right? That's a 12-year-old walking around with this, confidence of who he is and how he is. So I'm essentially would like to take the model. I'll call it my practice child, right? I like to take the model that I used of pouring positively into him and turn that into a broader curriculum in order to help, again, not just my community, our community, but all communities. Because again, a rising tide lifts all ships. And if we can do this as a culture of people here in America, regardless of color, then we can truly make a difference. Now, will I start where I live? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So which just so happens to be in a predominantly Black environment. Predominantly people of color reside in my neighborhood. And with that, I think that it would truly make a difference. So again, just to wrap up, I know it was a long-winded answer, but have I seen it in the school systems? No. And that's having gone through undergrad in Carbondale. I did a certificate program at Georgetown in Washington, D.C., and I'd also, again, completed my master's from OSU, and certain things just don't come up. So again, not going to complain about it. I'd rather just devote my life to making the difference.
And that should be the answer for all of us. Now, I'm going to take a commercial right quick, and I'm going to bring, because you were just talking about it. So this is my book that I am working on a course for: Healing Words, Speaking Life into the Generations. And that's why I have a family on there, because it's, besides there being a gap between the parents and the young people, it's also a gap between what I call the village elders and their children.
Come on.
The baby boomers, and that's my age, but I don't know if they had another name for older than me, but that's where my parents would be. And that's where the separation started after. And so right now, we've got to change. That's why the generational turnaround is necessary. And it's not for one generation or the other, because it's across the board. Some changes has to be made. And so when God told me, Paul, 3 days before my summit, the GT summit, that there was not going to be a generational turnaround until we do some healing. And that healing is for not one, no particular generation. It needs to be done. And so healing words is how it all starts. The words that you say in your course, in your business, everything that comes out of your mouth should be a healing word.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna stop there.
Oh, no, that's spot on.
What to say?
I said that's spot on. Spot on. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Okay, haven't seen behind the curtains of healthcare and insurance, what are a few dirty secrets every employer and individual should know right now to protect their family's future as far as
Whew.
insurance?
I will short version, and I'll just direct the listeners that really want to figure this out to
Mhm.
go to Amazon right now. Again, my second book, which is called Risk Transfer Revolution. This one speaks more so to everyone when it comes to healthcare specifically. The first book is primarily for employers to educate them on what's called self-funding. But within the healthcare space, some of the dirty secrets, I'll tell you right off the back, it's a game. It's a really, really dirty game. And you can tell that it's a dirty game when you realize that you look at the stock prices for companies like Blue Cross, United, Cigna, and Aetna. Okay, look at their stock prices. They never go down.
Never.
And they never go down. Right? Their graphs are consistently up and to the right, which is great for them and great for the shareholders and great for the folks that have invested heavily over the years. But what does that actually mean for the people that are on the other side of those numbers? That means that at renewal time, that 8 to 12% that each employer is facing can sometimes be 20 to 30%. And with that, the brokers that are there to help them, like the national brokerages out there that, I'm not ashamed to say I used to work for one of them. They just modify the plan and give a higher deductible or move a person from Blue Cross to United or United to Cigna or Cigna to Aetna. And it's like a merry-go-round of, I'll call it fallacies. And the fallacy is that they're actually in business to help people. That's the fallacy. What I learned when sitting at the company I used to work with on the employee benefit side was that the renewal process wasn't about the actual health of the employees. I watched them put the spreadsheet on the screen, and the gentleman from the carrier came in and said, well, hey, this is you guys' book of business. What do we need to do to make sure that we keep them all on the books? So side note, in an employer space, the whole reason that a broker is going to tell you, oh, well, I shopped the market and this is the best thing that's there, is not because it's actually the best thing that's there. If they work for Willis Towers Watson or USI or Aon or Gallagher or Lockton, no offense, guys, but this is just what I've seen from experience, is they have large contracts. And I actually have that's funny, I didn't plan on this, but it's right here. These are the bonus programs that are available to large brokerages. And what happens is there are overrides, there's retention bonuses. It's all here. It's literally all in black and white, right? There are retention bonuses. So if you keep 98%, right, it goes up a certain amount. For pharmacy, there's pharmacy bonuses, right? And you get $2 per script that's filled. And the employer doesn't know about these bonuses that are there in the back end. The employee has no clue either. But unfortunately, with that ignorance comes somebody shedding light on it at some point, and you end up having the lawsuit like the Johnson & Johnson lawsuit now, where there's a ability for the employer to really actually evaluate the options that are available and find out, as the fiduciary, meaning as the person that's financially responsible for taking care of that employee's healthcare plan, and they can find better options. But again, when the broker, who's maybe the HR person's brother or the CEO's nephew, right, is in there and they've been there for 5 years and they wouldn't do me wrong, well, guess again, they're getting a part of those bonuses.
Yeah.
They're getting a part of that retention bonus, or the company is. And the company, like the one I used to work for, if you have stock in the company, well, it behooves you to make sure that they're getting those back end retention bonuses, because that makes your stock higher. So there's stock you see and there's stock you don't see. And that's one of the biggest dirty secrets. In fact, I was just on a sales summit in January with Next Gen Benefits, which is a mastermind group that I'm a part of that actually looks to make a difference in this space. I had the pleasure of being with a gentleman named Terry Shook. Terry Shook was a 20-year executive with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And now I just realized I tangented off my other story, which I'll wrap up in a sec. But what he shared in that sales summit was that he had the ability to dial up, dial down a business's renewal based on really business needs, but really it was as he saw fit. So 1 year, again, typically renewals go up. That's the usual. They usually go up 2 to 3 points at the lowest, 8 to 10 is average, 20 to 25 is pretty high. He had a 30% reduction, right? Reduction. So it went down. He drove down the cost of the premium 30% for this one specific company. And again, I'll give you all the non-existent dollars in my pocket to guess why he drove that premium down. Right? No one's ever gotten it, so I'll spare you. Judy, he liked their beer. He liked their beer. So he gave a 30% reduction in premium to this company because he liked their beer. And again, to mirror that same story that I'd wrapped up when I saw the carrier from this specific company at the company I used to work with to come in and put the business up on the board, he would point and say, hey, this company had a good year. You know, the brokers or advisors would say, this company had a good year. Give them a few points less. This company had a bad year. We want to make sure that they stay, again, where they are. So in order to keep the business on the books, they would actually either give benefits. Oh, sorry, my baby just walked in, so she's going to get featured today unintentionally. They would actually bring in more money or less money, depending on the relationship that they had with the particular company. Now, none of that conversation was based on health. None of that conversation was based on whether or not the business itself was doing well and was profitable. It was based on whether or not they had a desire to work with that company or not. That's not good business. That's not healthcare. That's a financial conversation that's being had about profits within a company, and those type of things should not happen in a healthcare setting, right? At all.
But they are. So okay, looking back, I close with this one. Looking back, if you could write a letter to your younger Paul, just starting out in business, leadership, and family life, what 3 pieces of advice would you share, especially about the lessons you had learned the hard way before you could authentically teach others? I know it's long, but
that's a good one. I mean, basically, what I take that as is, looking back at my younger self, business wise, family wise, what type of advice would I share with my younger self?
Yeah.
Ooh, let's just be brutally honest with it. When it comes to leadership, I'm enough as I am, and I would say that I'm whole, complete, and perfect. Some people understand where that phrase comes from if they really know me, but otherwise, those that don't, just practice that phrase. Put your traditional religious and dogmas aside and say to yourself, go look in the mirror and say, I am whole, complete, and perfect, lacking nothing, right? And see what type of difference that makes when you go throughout your day, when you feel that you are whole, complete, and perfect. Again, to me, that phrase and that specific string of words is something that I wish that I knew or had inside of me when I was younger. And I'll tell the other side of that is because I'll just say we grow up where we're too dark skinned, right? We're too young to do things. We're not tall enough. Our speech isn't clear enough. There's something that is more often a negative that's being input into us, whether it be from media or from family, right? That we have to learn to overcome later on. So the question becomes, why do we have to overcome things that shouldn't be there in the first place? Again, entirely different conversation. So first piece of advice from a leadership standpoint, just from a growth standpoint, you are whole, complete, and perfect. Business-wise, no one is above you. No one is above you. And what I mean by that is I don't care if you're the CEO of a company, you are still a human being. You still bleed, read. You still, if you are able-bodied, put your pants on one leg at a time, right? No one is above you. And if no one is above you, then you speak to everyone as if they are you, right? As if they are you, if they are a person, a human, a God spirit, whatever you want to call it, right there in front of you, you talk to them as you, nothing else, not as a subordinate and not as a superior, right? But you talk to them as you. Third piece of advice, you see, you said business, leadership, family life. This is you know what? I'll remove the gender from it. Take your time. Take your time. There's been depending on where you grow up in the country, some people want to rush to get married and start a family young, and that's the best way to do it. And others want to maybe wait until for never, right? It's my word, for never, to have a children. And I wouldn't say wait until for never, right? We should multiply, and if you don't, that's your choice, and that's fine too. And those that do want to have that family structure, those that do want to recreate, be fruitful, and multiply, take your time. My honest advice would be to make sure that the person that you are first is healed from any of your previous trauma, that you're not still walking around with generations of weight on your shoulders and traumatic scars from abusive parents and bad relationships in the past and all these sorts of things that we carry into, not from our past, but we make them our present and put them in our future. Right. And I know that might be a lot.
I
So I don't
like
want to
that.
go into it.
Yeah, I like that.
So if you get it, go. We'll keep moving with that. So the lesson there is to take your time. Honestly, make sure that you're healed first from all of that stuff, so that you're not taking it and like a person would have a chair. So I don't have a chair with me that I can pick up, but putting it in front of them and being like, here's all my trauma, right? Deal with it and help me heal it. Make sure that I'm fine. No, heal yourself before
And
you go
then
into any relationship.
and then you infesting everybody around you.
Literally
Yeah,
like a virus
yeah,
almost. So
yeah.
heal yourself. And then the other piece to that is that make sure two pieces, make sure you're in the best possible position to pour into another person. Number two, and then make sure a third part of that is that person is also healed, right? Make sure that person is also healed, because you can be a healed person and then you want to pour into another person. But if that other person isn't healed, it's almost like pouring into somebody that's consistently got an umbrella over their head, right? And the things that you pour just fall off and they end up being wasted time, energy, effort going into the ground where they can be poured into another more fertile piece of soil. So heal yourself, create yourself such that you can pour into another person, and ensure that whatever that person is, whoever that person is that you're going to pour into, they themselves are also healed, so that it's not a waste of your time, energy, and effort. Because again, you only get one life. You only get one shot at this thing. So make
That
it count.
is, you know what? That they were all important. Everything that you just gave my viewers right then, right there. And I'm gonna say that I pray that today has been better than yesterday, but
Absolutely.
not as good as
As
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
I
Come on.
pray that tomorrow will bring forth a double portion, a blessing in the form of what? Opportunities
Mm,
that we never saw coming. Paul, I want to thank you for spending this time with us.
absolutely.
And like I promised everybody that we seek the truth, and then we bring you the proof. We seek the truth. I'm sorry. And then we bring you the proof. And the proof is in the guests that I have come and spend this hour with me. And Paul did just that. Thank you, Paul. Would you
You're very
would you
welcome.
like to say anything else before we go?
Certainly, if you are within earshot of my voice, please start your days with gratitude, as I have Be thankful for something. If you're within earshot of my voice, you have 100% of a reason to be thankful. A, because you can hear the sound of my voice. Okay. So for those of you who are out there ready to complain or criticize and critique and condemn, right? Stop it right now. Take a moment, realize you're breathing, you're able-bodied, and there's an opportunity out there for you somewhere in some way that you don't even know exists yet. And just start being thankful, right? Start being thankful, because the moment you do that, things begin to turn around for you. So it is with great gratitude that I'm here. For those of you that want to keep connected with me, my @ symbol at Paul H. Flowers Jr. It's me on every social media. You can go to my website, www.paul.health. My book is there, some other accolades and all this stuff. If you just want to, again, learn, stay connected, all of my social medias are there. And again, to you, Judy, thank you so much for, again, having me on, and the Generational Turnaround team. It is a great and humbling honor and privilege to have spent this time with you today. So thank you again, and I appreciate you.
No, thank you, Paul. And thank you, everybody, for coming back time after time and for making me #1 for the 3rd month in a row in the CTR Media Network, my show, Generational Turnaround. So we must be doing something right, Paul. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you all Sunday at 7 o'clock with the Generational Turnaround show. This, we have a show once a week, and I chose Sunday, and we'll be on Roku. Yes. And several other platforms. So I'll see you then.